My next guest is a two-time WWE Tag Team Champion. He's a second-generation wrestling star. His father ran the Atlantic Grand Prix wrestling territory. He's a wrestling star in Japan, Europe. He just finished an extended UK tour. Rene Dupree of La Resistance.
Bonjour.
Hello.
How are you?
He's had a lot of travel today. He flew in from Europe and then he drove from Montreal to here, so he's going to get some rest tonight before tomorrow.
Hopefully.
Tomorrow night, he actually has an interesting match. He's wrestling a guy that he was 31 years old with a ring set up in his parents' backyard at 31 years old with posts drilled into trees. He befriended us at Great North Wrestling. He helped set up the ring. I pointed him in the right direction. He's actually finally been training as a real professional wrestler for over a year now. He's 0 wins and 2 losses so far, but tomorrow night he's going to have a really tough challenge on his hand. He's a big boy, 255 pounds, about 6'2", but you've just come off a massive tour of the UK, and you're a machine. You're a two-time WWE Tag Team Champion. What can we expect in this fight?
He's going to kick that guy's backside.
He just said it. Pretty much. I got 22 years experience and he's going to feel it tomorrow night.
Now, you just came off of a UK tour. You wrestled a lot of stars. You were hanging out with Paige's brothers over there, wrestling for their family. You saw Carlito, I think, over there, Chris Masters. What was some of your best matches that you had on this most recent UK tour?
I wrestled a guy named BT Gunn from Scotland. He works for the Insane Championship Wrestling promotion out there, and he's all the Scottish guys are really, really good. A lot of the UK, Europe has a lot of good talent. Enjoy working with them, big time.
Now, you're going to hang around with me tonight for the Ted Hart interview, and after you're going to take some fan questions. You were known in WWE for your infamous Cafe de Rene segments that happened leading up to your matches with John Cena. What were some of the highlights of your Cafe de Renes over the years?
Tori Wilson. That's about it.
That's the number one.
That's the number one. Love that girl.
How did it work with Fifi? Because I assume they gave you a different Fifi every night. Was there ever a Fifi that gave you more problems?
Well, what they would do purposely, what they would do is, I wrestle like Rey Mysterio or Rob Van Dam, they had the big pyro at the time, right? So they purposely have them go out first, and I'd be waiting backstage with the dog, right? So as soon as the pyro hit, the dog would scare her, running the opposite direction. So my music's hitting, and I'm running backstage looking for Fifi. And every night was, what's his dad? Jerry, he would do that purposely.
Now, John Cena, he was still coming up when he was wrestling with you. He was starting to explode.
Yeah.
Since his matches with you, he's actually become a Hollywood star and one of the highest paid wrestlers of all time. Any thoughts on him overall?
Yeah, he's honestly, I like the guy. He's a guy you can trust if you're a promoter. He's there and he works hard, but he had 2 left feet, man. He was lousy in the ring. Wow.
Is there any match with him that stands out to you as the best match you had? Maybe it was on a house show, maybe it wasn't even on TV.
Matches we had in Europe were really good. We made an event in my hometown, which was a big highlight for me. Being able to go to my hometown and re-rehab them. That was really good. But yeah, we were like married to each other for like 6 months, almost every night, working.
And for those that don't know, I mentioned it in my introduction, your father, Rene Dupree, ran a highly successful wrestling territory back before WWE took everything over. Macho Man spent a lot of time in your dad's territory, David Schultz, Lanny Poffo, the list goes on and on. Leo Burke, one of the best technicians of all time.
Yep.
What are some of the memories growing up in such a territory where I think there was multiple shows going on a night and sometimes?
Yeah, in the prime we had up to 14 shows a night just in that small, 3-province area. And Harley race, may he rest in peace. In 1990, he came and worked for my dad, and he stayed at our house. And he was such a gentleman. And one night, after the matches, him and my dad were out at the bar. And then they cut through a yard to get back to their car. And as they cut through the yard, there was a stray dog, a pit bull, who actually was going to run up and bite my dad. So Harley, who had like a metal plate in his arm, I think he had a car accident, actually smacked the dog. Boom! Knocked the dog out.
Yeah, because he was known for actually having superhuman strength with that metal plate. He would be able to grip somebody, and if he didn't like them, he could take a handshake and literally put a guy down to his knees. And if he hit you with that punch,
Yeah,
he would knock you completely out.
He was a man's man, and he had broken into business young, just like I did, like 14 or 15. And yeah, the wrestling world lost a legend, definitely.
What's your favorite match you ever saw from Harley race?
Actually, I really enjoyed the WrestleMania 3 match with Junkyard Dog, just because you know how limited Junkyard Dog was, and you just see Harley just the way he's so good, so good.
Very technical.
Yeah, and the matches, I remember in the Maritimes, he worked against the guys there, like the Beast and wrestlers like that, and he still worked so hard, you know what I mean, every night. Unbelievable.
Did you have much contact with Randy Savage when he was coming through your dad's territory?
I wasn't even born, but they were just starting. This was like in the 70s, maybe 75. I was born in 83, so. But when we would vacation in Florida, we would actually stay at Macho Man's house. He'd be on the road touring, and he lived across the street from his parents, and then we start, stayed in contact, so we'd go vacation in the Keys and stay at Macho Man's house, so that's pretty cool.
Wasn't your father the best man for Macho Man's brother, Lanny Poffo's wedding, which he had in the Maritimes?
Yeah, he was the best man,
Did you have any contact with Lanny? We all know I've had my ups and downs with Lanny over the years. We keep our distances now, but any stories about Lanny?
No, I mean, he helped me, he had a mutual friend that worked for the WWF at the time, so that was, it's all, that's just...
Holly, right? Or something?
Yeah, she's a great girl, and I got a tryout because of it, and I got hired, so I have nothing but respect for the Poffo family.
Now, there's an interesting video online. I actually watched this a couple of years ago when you were in development, Ohio Valley Wrestling. They followed the life of a development wrestler. This is before NXT and the huge TV thing they have now. But you were so dedicated to your diet, you actually set an alarm in the middle of the night where you'd wake up and you would drink protein. Is your diet still that strict, and how has your diet changed over the years?
Well, no, my appetite isn't as much as it used to be as I get older, But yeah, I try to still follow 6 meals a day and try to stay lean and in shape. I don't really want to be big and bulky like I used to be. I'd rather be leaner so I can move better. You know what I mean? In the ring, plus it's healthier. You got all that weight. It's easier to, tear muscles. It's easier to. It's hard on your body taking all those. Wrestling is very real, ladies and gentlemen.
Now, I really don't know anything about this, but when you did that video with Chris Masters, a lot of people privately messaged me and said, I thought those guys were enemies backstage and they had a lot of heat. Is that just a bunch of rumors, or was there actually something in the past that was eventually squashed?
Yeah, in wrestling, there's very few friends. A lot of people think that, all we all get along well. It's like everybody here has a job. There's people at your job that you like. There's people that you dislike. And you don't necessarily hang out with each other after work, right? It's just like that in wrestling. It's very.
Everyone wants your spot.
It's very competitive, yeah. Especially when you're at that level, it's very competitive, and especially with me and him, because we were both the same age and we both had similar looks. So it's a competition, right? But since then we squashed it, and I bought him to Martin's, so we're all good.
And I will say something about Rene. He does have a reputation that he was arrogant in his younger days, but I knew him briefly before he went to WWE, and when I was backstage getting tryouts, when he was having his feud with Cena and when he was Tag Team Champions, he treated me no differently than he treated me now or treated me before that. So I think it's just a lot of jealousy and rumors build. I don't think the attitude is something that is a label that you're really deserving of.
Yeah, I was very quiet, so sometimes when you're a quiet person, you come up, they might say always arrogant. just a quiet person, and, you know, is very dedicated and driven to succeed as far as I could go, you know, so.
Now let's just bring that up. Ted Hart was the one that brought me into Mat Rats. That's how I knew you briefly. There was a kids show that, for anyone that doesn't know, they were going to do this kids MTV wrestling show back around 2001. We were all still teenagers, in our late teenagers. Davey Boy Smith Jr. was there, Ted Hart, TJ Wilson, Tyson Kidd, Natalia, Rick Victor was in it, and Randy Myers from Defy, now he's a star. So a lot of the wrestlers ended up becoming great wrestlers over time. But I was brought into it from amateur wrestling. How were you brought into it? And I've said it before, I wasn't actually ever paid for my match. Were you ever paid?
Yeah, I still got the check at home. When I get bored, I bounce it off the ground. Yeah, no, it was, it's like wrestling business, you know, I was working in the Maritimes and, you know, wrestlers talk and stuff, so, and, you know, Teddy heard of me, so they flew me out to Calgary, and I got to work with Harry Smith, Davey Boy Jr., and it was great, because I got to see Stu Hart, legendary Stu Hart, before he passed away, and I got to see Harry's father, Davey Boy Smith, who the British Bulldogs they were my team. I love the British Bulldogs, you know. And so yeah, so that's where I met this guy for the first time, and it's kind of weird how the world works, right? Everything comes around, right?
And he was the same size at that time. I was, I think, 17 or so. He was 17. I think he's a little younger than me, but he was the exact same size when he was 17, which is incredible.
Yeah, I had a growth spurt at a young age. Well, what happens, I hit puberty and I shot up like 6 inches, and then I had my tonsils taken out. And when I had my tonsils taken out, I just started eating everything I saw. But you know, we knew what we wanted to do, and we knew that, hey, look at the guys on TV, that, you know, they look a certain way, so you gotta work hard, you know, get the look.
You've wrestled in Japan a lot. I understand you're going back to Japan soon for a company that you're not allowed to talk about yet, because it's going to be a surprise. But you want to share with us some of your memories of Japan?
Oh, Japan was great. I love Japan. When I was a little kid, like a lot of the wrestlers, the way it worked back then before WWF, they would wrestle in the Maritimes for the summer season, then they would go to Stu Hart for the winter. And in between, they would usually do tours of Japan, right? So then Leo Bark came over to the house and he was saying, you know, land of the rising sun. And at that young age, I just wanted to go visit the country and go there. And I've been going over now for 12 years. I got 50 tours over there, and I'm going back over for 3 months at the end of the month. Wrestling the Great Buddha.
You're wrestling the Great Buddha?
Yes, sir.
Anyone remember the Great Buddha from WCW?
I watched him in Impact.
For those of you who don't know, he invented the moonsault, he invented the Shining Wizard, and the People's Elbow was actually taken from him. He did something similar.
And you're married to a Japanese woman. I don't know how personal you want to get on this, but how did you end up meeting your wife? And could you tell us a little bit about the story there?
I just met her through a personal, it was one of my friends, and, you know, it's like, that's how you meet. Met at one of the clubs she was working at. Yeah, that was 13 years ago.
Time flies.
Time does fly, yes, sir.
And I mentioned earlier you wrestled for the company that Paige's parents organized over in the UK. Did you see the movie that was about that family? And if you did, what were your thoughts on it?
No, I didn't get a chance to see the movie, but I've known the family for years. I've known the family for about 10 years. And they're really good people. And I mean, they're 24/7 wrestling. They eat, sleep, breathe, live it. So.
What was their reaction to the movie? Did they talk at all about it?
I think their business shut up, so I think they're pretty happy with it. Great exposure.
Now, you've promoted the Atlanta Grand Prix wrestling territory yourself a little bit over the past few years. Any plans in the future to reopen it? I know you're traveling a lot. It's pretty busy for you right now to take the time that it's going to take to operate that. But any plans?
Well, I'm in wrestling for life. This business is like a drug. When you're in it, you're hooked for life. You try to get away with it, get away from it. You just get right. Am I right? So yeah, eventually I'd like to partner up with maybe Devin and a few others and try to make something work, you know.
What's the favorite match you ever witnessed from your dad's territory growing up?
Probably the match that he was in. There's a famous Japanese wrestler named Masahiro Chono, and my dad got to wrestle when I was a little kid. And I didn't know, he never told us anything about wrestling, so I'm watching, I'm crying because my dad's getting beaten up and then the whole crowd. I think my dad planted me there, just, you know what I mean? So the fans would react more, but he went on to be a massive, massive star and actually a boss in New Japan Pro Wrestling. Which, are you guys familiar with New Japan Pro Wrestling? No? It's, you can check it out, it's pro wrestling. Understand? That's what I love. That's what I grew up with. And, yeah.
Any questions for Rene that you want to shout out to me?
Yeah, if you have a boat with somebody, there's always some trash talking. How do you get around with the language barrier?
In Japan?
I'll just say it again in case it didn't get picked up. The language barrier in Japan, for any fans that didn't hear that on camera, how do you get around the language?
私は日本語を勉強してます。はい。
Okay, so that's all. Very good.
私のちょっと日本人 talking. I've been learning for 13 years. When I go back over, I'm actually going to stay at my in-laws and go to Japanese school at night to really learn the language. Yeah.
And he loves to do karaoke too, by the way. I've seen him do Born to Be Wild.
Yes, sir, karaoke. I'm a big karaoke fan. Maybe tomorrow night or tonight we can go.
Last question.
If you ever came back to WWE, who in the heck would you want to knock the living crap out of? Like Brock? Anybody specifically?
I actually had offers to go back there, and then I declined. That's why they put a belt on a 10-year-old at WrestleMania. Now you know why.
Yeah, okay.
I will talk about that a little bit. It's like people were, well, why? No, it's so great. Those audiences, they have massive audiences, and when you go in front of those crowds, people don't realize it. It's like a drug, okay? It's like there's a flash of dopamine that releases in your brain, and it's very hard to come down from that. Understand? That's why a lot of people are miserable, because they get that initial, push on TV or whatever, and oh, this is great, and then creative has nothing for you, and then they're like a dry drunk. They just get miserable because they want to be, they want it more. And I'm very much like that as well. So, but if I went back, I'd probably want Randy Orton, teach him a lesson.